The house stood proudly, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, a picture of suburban tranquility. Lush green lawns stretched out front, meticulously manicured. The white picket fence was freshly painted, a stark contrast to the vibrant rose bushes lining the walkway. Sarah hummed softly to herself as she unpacked, the rhythmic clinking of dishes a soothing melody in the quiet house. She paused, glancing out the window at the street below. Children were playing, their laughter carried on the gentle breeze. Everything felt perfect, idyllic, too perfect perhaps. A shiver ran down her spine, a sudden discord in the harmonious scene. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled with an uneasy sensation. As the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the lawn, the feeling of being watched returned, stronger than before. The shadows grew longer, stretching like grasping claws across the living room floor. Sarah found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window sent a jolt of fear through her. She tried to rationalize her fear, to attribute it to the stress of moving, the unfamiliarity of her new surroundings. But deep down, a primal instinct whispered a warning, telling her that something was wrong. Unable to shake the feeling of dread that had settled over her, Sarah decided to explore the upstairs, hoping to find the source of the noise that had startled her earlier. The air grew colder as she ascended the stairs, the scent of dust and decay thick in her nostrils. Each step was hesitant, her hand trailing along the wall, seeking a comfort that wasn't there. Reaching the top of the stairs, she paused, listening intently. The only sound was the pounding of her own blood in her ears. She took a deep breath, steeling herself to face whatever awaited her in the darkness. The attic door creaked open with a groan, revealing a space choked with dust and cobwebs. A single beam of moonlight sliced through the gloom, illuminating a jumble of forgotten treasures and discarded memories. Drawn by an inexplicable pull, Sarah found herself moving towards a small, ornately carved wooden chest tucked away in a shadowy corner. As she knelt down, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings, a chill swept through her, more intense than any she had felt before. With trembling hands, she lifted the lid, releasing a musty odour that spoke of bygone eras. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed lace and faded velvet, lay a leather-bound photo album. She knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that this album held the key to unlocking the mysteries of this house and the unsettling presence she felt around her. The photographs inside the album were both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. They depicted a family from a bygone era, their smiles frozen in time. A handsome man with kind eyes, a woman with a melancholic beauty, and a young girl who stared back at Sarah with an unnerving intensity. As Sarah delved deeper into the album, she noticed a recurring element in many of the photos, a dark figure lurking at the edges of the frame. It was often blurry, almost indistinguishable from the shadows, yet it was always there, its presence undeniable. Determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious figure, Sarah sought out her neighbour, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman with a reputation for knowing everything about everyone. Mrs. Henderson listened intently as Sarah recounted her findings, her wrinkled face etched with a mixture of concern and something akin to fear. "That house," Mrs. Henderson whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "it has a dark past. The family in those photographs, they met a tragic end. Murder-suicide, they said. But some folks around here believe it was something more sinister, something evil." Driven by a morbid curiosity and a growing sense of dread, Sarah decided to delve deeper into the history of the house. Her search led her to a crumbling mental institution on the outskirts of town, its decaying walls whispering tales of madness and despair. It was here, according to local rumours, that the young girl from the photographs had been taken after the tragic events that claimed her parents' lives. After hours of searching through dusty files and faded records, Sarah finally found what she was looking for. The file on the young girl from the photographs, now a woman in her late 70s. The file contained disturbing drawings and incoherent ramblings, alluding to a dark presence that haunted her, a watcher in the shadows with glowing eyes. As she read the woman's words, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was treading on dangerous ground, that she was unearthing something best left buried. She decided to request a visit with the woman, hoping to glean some understanding from her fragmented memories. The old woman sat hunched in a rocking chair, her eyes vacant, her grip on reality tenuous at best. She looked up as Sarah entered the room, a flicker of recognition or perhaps fear crossing her features. For a moment she saw a glimpse of the young girl from the photographs, the same haunting eyes staring back at her. "He's here," the woman rasped, her voice barely a whisper. "He's always watching. He waits in the shadows, watching, waiting for his moment to strike." Her words sent a chill down Sarah's spine, confirming her worst fears. The watcher was real. That night sleep evaded Sarah. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside her window sent her heart racing. She lay in bed, paralyzed by fear, her eyes wide open, staring into the darkness, dreading what she might see. The next day, Sarah woke in a cold sweat. The memory of the watcher's glowing eyes seared into her mind. She tried to convince herself it was just a nightmare, a figment of her overactive imagination, fueled by the old woman's ramblings and the unsettling atmosphere of the house. But deep down, she knew the truth. The watcher was real, and he was here, watching her, toying with her. Night after night, the terror escalated. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, taunting her, threatening her. She couldn't escape the feeling of eyes on her, watching her every move. The house, once her sanctuary, had become her prison, a cage where fear was her only companion. She tried to seek help, to confide in friends, but they dismissed her concerns as exhaustion or stress. No one believed her, or perhaps they were too afraid to believe. Sarah's once vibrant personality began to fade, replaced by a haunted hollow shell of her former self. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and laughter, now reflected the terror that consumed her. She stopped caring about her appearance, her once meticulously kept home, her life outside the confines of her nightmare. The watcher had taken everything from her, leaving behind only a hollow shell of a woman, haunted by fear and consumed by the darkness that surrounded her. She became a recluse, withdrawing from the world, seeking solace only within the four walls of her home, the very place where her nightmare had begun. But there was no escaping the watcher. He was everywhere. In the shadows that stretched across the walls, in the creaking of the floorboards, in the whispers of the wind. He was a constant presence, a dark passenger riding shotgun on her descent into madness. Sarah's friends, concerned by her drastic change, tried to intervene, but their efforts were futile. One fateful evening, as the sun began its final descent, casting long, eerie shadows across the town, Sarah's screams pierced the quiet suburban night. Neighbours, drawn out by the blood-curdling sound, watched in horror as she stumbled out, her eyes wide with terror. She ran into the street, frantically waving her arms, her voice hoarse from screaming. "He's here!" she cried, her words barely coherent. The authorities were called and Sarah was taken away, her screams echoing in the night. The neighbours watched as the ambulance sped away, its siren wailing a mournful dirge in the twilight. The doctors diagnosed her with catatonia, her mind seemingly shattered beyond repair.